Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Dev Chat. Today I am here with Raul aka Molegato. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Molegato. I am the developer behind Frogun and its sequel Frogun Encore, and I'm just very happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I always ask people on this whenever I talk to them how they got into game development. So what's exactly your story? How did you get into game development?
Well, it's a bit funny because I've always liked video games a whole lot since I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I heard from a friend from school that there was this kind of program called RPG Maker that could be used to make a game. Just the concept of yes, you can just make a game at home. It was crazy to
Yeah.
me, and it just spiraled downward from there.
So when did it become like an actual thing you could do? Because I know like you've had a bunch of games before Frogun. Like you have Lone Siren, Chainsaw Cat, Sword Storms, and a bunch of other small games. What was the evolution leading up to Frogun?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned like Frogun as the turning point between not really making games and making games. But I would say that turning point is way earlier. All those games you mentioned,
Yeah.
starting by Lone Siren,
Yeah.
they all come from. I guess that's when I got serious about it. Because before Lone Siren, I was just making prototypes for fun in my spare time, and I will never ever finish a project.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that a bit. I know you read Derek Hughes' finishing a game article thing. So was that the turning point? Like, was that what pushed you to finish a project?
Yeah, that was like a hit of reality. Like, hey, if you want to make a game, you have to actually finish it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to work in a different way. I need to see this in a different way. Because, I really wanted to make something, but I was not actually doing anything. I was just toying around.
I get that. So, yeah, so how, again, sorry, just take me again through the evolution. Like, how did you end up with Frogun eventually? Like, how did you go through all the games, and why make a 3D platformer now?
Well, I love 3D platformers, so that's for a starter. Like, a lot of those projects that I mentioned before and that I didn't finish were platformers, both in 2D and 3D.
Yeah.
But the thing is, after my previous project, Supersonic Time Cats, I was kind of burned out.
Yeah.
It was a really hard development for such a game that couldn't really be successful anyway. I decided, okay, next thing I do, it will have to be something I'm more comfortable with, something that is shorter, something that can be scaled down.
Yeah.
Because a racing game, it's deceptively hard to make.
Yeah.
Like, the CPU controlling the rivals, trying, because I didn't even do it at the end, but trying to make it online, it's incredibly hard, especially for someone who is making a game almost on their own.
Yeah.
And I know there's other developers around that are actually doing that and more. I honestly think they are sort of superhuman.
I agree. And you've joined that list now that you've made so many games,
No, I don't think so. The reason I chose to work on Frogun, because I had like a few other candidates for next project. I had a list and it had like 6 different possible projects to work on. And I ended up deciding on Frogun because it was the smallest one. It was the shortest and most straightforward one of the list. And I was like, okay, let's pick something I know I can finish without burning out.
And did you end up burning out, or like was it all smooth sailing?
Not smooth sailing, but I did manage to finish without burning out. Even if the game actually grew quite a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Kickstarter campaign and the general positive reception it was getting.
Yeah. So, like you said, you have a bunch of games prior to Frogun. Why start Kickstarter with Frogun? Like, what was the reasoning behind that?
Well, people were liking it quite a bit,
Mm.
and so I thought that maybe it shouldn't be the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Let's keep in mind though that the Kickstarter campaign had a goal of $5,000,
Yeah.
which is not exactly like pocket change, but
Yeah.
is super low for what a video game project is.
Definitely.
So basically, the campaign was mostly to pay for the music and a couple other things.
Yeah.
I will still work on it on my own time.
Mm. So it didn't replace like your full-time job. It was still like something you did on the side.
Yeah, kinda, because when I was working in the previous project in Supersonic Cast, especially at the start of it, I had a day job at an office. I was a Java developer,
Mm.
and it was making myself miserable at that job. I
understand that. I get that. Yeah.
I quit somewhere in the middle of Supersonic Cats development.
Mm.
And I just started freelancing, but that wouldn't mean that I will just get to work on my own projects. Like, I was freelancing for other developers.
Yeah.
I was just making jigs, making art, making commissions. I was at least working on my chosen field and on my art and on the thing I love, just not always on my own projects.
Yeah, and I think that's a good compromise, and it's good, right? Like, 'cause
Yeah.
you were doing something you weren't enjoying, and you took a risk, and I think it paid off with Frogun and Supersonic as well. So,
Yeah, actually, with Supersonic Cats, since the project didn't work very well, that's why I decided to make a smaller project. But since it took off almost instantly,
Yeah.
as soon as I presented the character to the world in social media, I kind of reduced the amount of freelance work I do for other studios, so I could kind of focus a little bit more on Frogun.
Yeah.
That's also part of the reason of the Kickstarter campaign.
And I'm sure it was motivating as well, right? To see so many people actually like react positively, and then eventually so many people ended up, contributing to the Kickstarter as well. I'm sure that made it also easier to focus on Frogun as well.
Oh, definitely. Like, not only on the material sense, because the Kickstarter campaign, which ended up like crossing its goal in just 2 hours, and
That's
then
crazy.
meeting a bunch of stretch goals. It reached like 35k. It's not like I became rich, but it was a life-changing amount. Like a lot of immediate stresses just went away.
So you can get to focus on what actually matters.
Yeah, I could actually focus a little bit more on the project and make something a little bit bigger than initially intended. And I tried to just continue with that momentum into the sequel with Encore.
So how did the Kickstarter affect like the rest of the development? Because like I know you had a bunch of stretch goals, and I know with like, for example, like with Ukulele, the Kickstarter, I know that they had a bunch of stretch goals that they wished that they didn't do eventually. Like they wish they didn't put it up as stretch goals. How did the stretch goals and the campaign overall affect the actual development of the game?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say that I wish the stretch goals to not be met, because in fact, I think I would like to have made even a better job with Frogun. Like, you can see that there is like a strong core, but there is some parts, especially later on, that maybe could have used a little bit more thought or a little bit more work on them. But that's something that you also need experience for. As long as I've been working on game development, I've been earning experience, but it seems like it's a never-ending battle.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can either decide to work on the game forever and not release it, or release it and learn from it. And I think you made a good decision, because obviously you have a popular enough and good game on your hands as well.
Well, definitely also it's important that since it was a Kickstarter campaign, I didn't want to just delay it. Because there's a lot of people, much more people than I anticipated, that were contributing to the game. It couldn't be fair for them to have to wait more. And also the main reason I chose Frogun at the start was because it was a feasible project that I could finish in a certain amount of time. So delaying it will be against that that important decision.
Yeah, exactly. So talk to me a bit about the actual concept of Frogun, because I know with Chainsaw Cat and with the name Molegato, like you have a lot of your ideas are like mixing animals with other things. So talk to me about how Frogun came up, the idea, and like Renata and the explorer, treasure hunter aspect of all of that.
Well, for starters, I just love animals.
Yeah.
I think they are cool and cute, and I think anyone can know that feeling. So just adding animals to things is one of the many ways to add personality very quickly. But the reason behind Frogun is mostly that I had already a mechanic in mind. Like the first thing that was born for Frogun was the mechanic. I just choose something that will make it look cute and make sense. And I thought that, a Thanos frog could fit very well, that mechanic.
Yeah.
So I just adapted everything to it. Renata is actually an older design than the Frogun itself. Just adapted because when it was just a project candidate in my text file list, it was just like a hookshot platformer.
Yeah.
And I had a rough idea of how Renata would look. She was just like an explorer. But, she didn't have the family background. She didn't have the being a little kid necessarily. She didn't have the Frogun or the helmet that looks like a frog's eyes.
Yeah.
So it was just more of a general idea that I adapted for the project itself later on.
So, and what about like these notes that I'm picking up? When in development did you decide to add those and like build out the lore and the story of the game? Because I really like these because they make like I love collecting them and reading them and like seeing more about the characters and everything. So, when during development did that come up?
Well, first of all, thank you for reading them.
Yeah.
I think not many people appreciate them. I just added them because, this game has very little dialogue. It's a very light-hearted, very quick game, very simplistic. So if I wanted to flesh the characters out, it had to be like in this way or something similar.
Yeah.
Because adding a lot of cutscenes will be like a lot of work and so kind of ruin the pace.
Yeah.
So I thought that will be like the best way. And also it will be a way to give a reward for completing the game.
Yeah.
That is not exactly like unlocking stuff. It's just, each node is different itself. So maybe that will be enough for the nodes to be worth it.
And that's the thing. The people who want to read can read, and the people who don't want to read, don't read. That's like you have to consider a lot of different types of players, right? Yeah, same with the in general the completion. Because I went through this game just a month ago, and tried to complete it. Collect everything. How did you balance like making the game rewarding enough for people who don't want to complete it, but also like having the unlockables or having giving the people the motivation to actually go for the 100%,
But it was a real tricky thing to do because there is often a lot of talk about different difficulty settings in games for accessibility and just to adapt the game to anyone's likings or or their specific needs. But sometimes the best way to adapt to someone is to do it silently through the design of the game itself rather than with an explicit option.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do something that will allow people to choose if they want to play quick or slow or if they will put themselves through a gauntlet of obstacles without too much health. And so I made it so that by completing everything, you will unlock extra hit points.
Yeah.
So if someone likes to play quick and risky, they will get a riskier game because they don't have as much hit points.
Yeah. So how did you balance the difficulty, like the overall difficulty of the game? Because I know, like the game actually, this game especially, not the sequel as much, but gets really difficult towards the end. How did you balance it so that people don't get too frustrated?
Well, I have to admit that I made a little mistake in balancing this game because a lot of how the game becomes very difficult near the end is a result of the stretch goals in the Kickstarter. Since the game is longer and I started making levels with a difficulty in mind, and I had to make it longer and make more levels after the ones I designed,
Mm.
the difficulty kept ramping up because I couldn't just make another level that is easier than the
Yeah.
previous one.
Mm.
And also compounded to that is the fact that I was learning how to play myself as I
Yeah.
develop it.
Yeah.
So at first, even simple jumps were enough of a challenge for me, so I left them that way. And eventually, I was just doing hard tricks and considering them like normal play.
Yeah. And like, did you have a test? Like, did anyone else test the game, or was it like
Mostly it was myself. Like
Mm.
very near the end of the project, I got some help with QA from the publisher, from Top Hat Studios.
Mm.
But that was mostly for tech issues or big problems, stuff to fix.
But you couldn't change the overall design of the game, I'm guessing, because it was too late in development.
Yeah, like I could do that, but it could have meant like a big delay
Yeah.
and crunching myself more than I already did.
Yeah. So you mentioned Top Hat. How did that relationship come about? Because I think your previous games were self-published, I guess.
Yeah, like a publisher is a game changer, to be honest. At least a good one, because I have worked with other publishers.
Yeah.
Actually, Supersonic and Cats is on Nintendo Switch 2,
Yeah.
and the publishing deal for it was just for the console version. But I would say that working with Top Hat was a much better experience overall, because they actually did a lot more things for the game that other publishers will do.
Because it's
Like
on,
not only did they help with marketing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
it's on a lot more platforms as well, not just Switch and Steam as well, right? Like Frogun is on a lot of platforms, and I'm guessing Top Hat helped a lot with that.
Yeah, definitely it wouldn't have been possible without them. Like, to be honest, making a game is such a complex task. It's full of other little subtasks and little different experience. And you know, making a game itself is already hard, but porting is like a whole new field.
Yeah.
So that's why most indie developers don't make their games for consoles. Like, not only because they cannot access the development kit or pay the fees or go through certification, they just straight up don't know. And I say they, but I should say we. I don't know how to make a game for consoles. Like, Frogun is up there, Frogun Anchor is up there, but I didn't do that myself. I'm working in Unity, which is a cross-platform engine, but there's still like a lot of expertise and knowledge needed to port it for consoles, and that is something that Top Hat did.
Awesome. What else? Sorry, I cut you off earlier. What you were mentioning? They didn't just help with marketing. What else did, what else were they able to help with as well?
Well, for starters, of course, as I mentioned, there's marketing. Like they have a lot more knowledge of how to promote one's game. But also, they in general have a lot of technical knowledge about optimization. They helped a lot with that during the late part of development. They also provided QA, quality assurance. Sorry, my pronunciation is a little bit off sometimes.
No worries.
They provided testing for optimization and for bugs. And you know, it was like a myriad of small things and a few big ones.
Yeah.
And I think that is like a big difference. When I worked on my project and I had to do everything myself, there were things that were simply not feasible. Some things weren't just harder or easier, they were just impossible. Or not worth to pursue. But having a good publisher really changes a lot of things. It helps shape a little bit the direction of a game. Because you consider things that otherwise you wouldn't even consider as possibilities.
So, overall, would you recommend other indie developers to go for a publisher?
If their game is really, really small, Not really,
Yeah.
because a publisher will also take
A percentage.
a bit of the revenue, of
Yeah.
course, but also a publisher will always want guarantees and will always want the projects to be very well organized, to have some safety nets,
Yeah.
and those things are very good. That's why they want them. But for a very small project, are probably not worth it, especially if you are just a single dev working on a small project on the weekends.
Yeah.
I'd say in that case, it's better to just go fast, do everything you can yourself, and get it out. But if you get a little bit more ambitious, you want to make something a little bit bigger, then a publisher will provide things that you cannot have yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible that one single person knows everything and does everything.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked a bit about your game. What about? So I just wanted to mention because I watched a bit like a few of your streams while researching and everything, and I noticed you kept Digimon World music, and I'm just so happy to meet someone else who loves Digimon World because I love that.
Digimon World is so cool.
Yeah, like it's still one of the more unique games I've ever played, and the sequels other than 4 always disappointed me. But just wanted to mention that.
Well, Digimon World is a weird one because the sequels really are
different.
Like they have World in their name, but they are very different games. Like only a few later on actually became actual sequels of Digimon World.
I think the new ones, right? Digimon Story?
Yeah, like I think recently they just decided to clean up their tangle of different Digimon series.
Yeah.
And they just have like 2 main ones, which is Story and World. Like, have you played Digimon World Next Order, for example?
I have not, but I've heard it's like kind of like a remake of the first one, right? Is it?
Well, it's more like a Digimon World 1, but the sequel. It's like the same system, but much better. It's like, it's way easier to move around. Has the same vibes too.
Is it like, do you recruit? Because my favorite part of the Digimon games, the first one, is like recruiting different Digimon to your like home base. Is that a thing in the?
Yeah, definitely. You are still like growing out File City.
Awesome.
Like Digimon is there, the old man from the beginning.
Awesome.
So it's real cool.
So that's one classic game that like I'm guessing inspired Frogun in some way. What else? Like what are the 3 games that inspired Frogun?
Well, definitely Digimon World is not exactly one of the inspirations for Frogun.
That's a direct
like,
one.
As much as I love that game, but Frogun was mostly inspired by Captain Toads and Super Mario 3D World that I had played like recently before starting work on Frogun, but also on Crash Bandicoot, specifically Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2. Like that's the reason there is so many ruins in this game.
Yeah.
And also the main mechanic was inspired by the attack chain weapon in Mega Man X2.
Okay.
Because it was such a neat concept, but it was implemented so poorly in that game, it doesn't fit at all.
And you're like, I can do better.
Yeah, just because the game itself is not designed for that kind of movement. So the reality is you only use that weapon for the boss that is weak to it and to play around, and I think there is like one collectible that you have to use it for.
Yeah.
So you won't be using it for traversal in that game. And so I just dream of using it. Like I just play around with it without ever moving anywhere. And I thought, man, there should be a game that actually uses this. So I kind of made it into 3D.
And that's one of my favorite things. And like because I've talked to Fabraz from Demon Turf as well, and they also said like, why don't when they talk about a game they want to see, they actually just go ahead and make it. And I'm guessing that's one of the most like fulfilling parts of making games, right?
Yeah, definitely. Although I will say that it's a phrase that sounds so much better than it is in reality.
What do you mean?
Because making a game is way harder than playing a game.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I just want to play a game in which I do this. So I will spend 3 to 4 years working on it. By the end of that time, maybe you don't even want to play that game because you are so tired.
You've played it so many times, yeah.
So it has to come to somewhere else. Not only wanting to play that game. You must want to actually make it, because that's what you'll do rather than play it. You'll be making, so you have to want to make it.
So when you see Frogun, is it a game that you want to play, or is it like, I've had enough, I never want to see this again?
I like the game. I just invested so many hours in it. Than I don't know.
I understand.
Like, you can only invest so many hours in a game without getting a little bit tired, at least for a while.
So how did you balance, because this is a very classic inspired game, right? Like we mentioned with Toad's Treasure and Super Mario Kart Bandicoot. How do you balance making something that's a throwback while also keeping it modern for like modern audiences? Like, how do you find that balance?
Well, as a balance, it's like real hard, especially on paper. Like, you have to write down what you want to use or keep. But there is one feeling that helped me a lot, and it's that I am not trying to make a game that could be on the PlayStation. I'm trying to make a game that is like how the PlayStation games were in my mind.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we play old games nowadays, we can see how certain mechanics or graphics haven't aged as well, or don't match our rose-tinted memories.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make a game that, rather than being authentic to hardware, was authentic to the memory.
Memories, yeah. Awesome. And I found the best way to play classic games is through an emulator with save states, because that's like, the checkpoints back then were horrible.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So, what are, let's say, 3 games you'd like to shout out? It could be indie, non-indie, anything. Just 3 games you'd like to highlight that you're looking forward to.
Well, there is this project that has been in development for a long time, called Combustion, that is made by a good friend of mine. Combustion.
Oh, okay, yeah, Combustion, yeah.
Yeah, Combustion. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is so bad.
No worries. I think just the audio quality is fine.
So yeah, like, the developer is a good friend of mine, and you know, I don't think there's as many low poly games that look as beautiful as that one. And the development is being like super long. Like, he's been working on it from before I worked in Frogun. So I think when someone puts as much as of himself into a project, like, that gotta amount to something. Like, that gotta show. So I think it will be super fantastic as soon as it's finished.
I've seen it, I think, and it looks really unique. Like,
Visually is stunning, and the story is shaping up to be super deep.
Awesome.
So I really can't wait for the project to advance more.
Anything else?
Another shootout I would like to make is Witchfall, Secret of Emotica, another game that is in development. And it's also published by Tallhat Studios. And it's much like Frogun is inspired by Crash Bandicoot. Like, you will see that Witchfall is very much inspired by Rayman 1. And I don't think we see that very often.
Yeah.
And it's just super neat. It's just such a beautiful game too. And of course, I also had to shoot out another game that is based around Hookshot, which is Grapple Dog, and its sequel, Grapple Dogs. Like, the first game is good, but the sequel is amazing. Like, I wish Frogun Encore was to Frogun what Grapple Dogs is to Grapple Dog. Because seriously, the amount of improvements is astounding to see.
Awesome.
And can I shoot out yet another one, like, just real quick?
Yeah, no worries.
It's Rad Venture. It's another game that has been in development for a long while, and I just want to shout it out because it's in a Kickstarter campaign right now.
Oh no, I think it's gonna take me a while to edit this video, so by the time this one's done, hopefully it's been funded.
I think it will, so it's just that I want to wish them the best because I am participating myself, and I just want to see the projects come forth and be finished.
Awesome. And yeah, that's one of the things that I was, while you were talking earlier, I was going through the hats. That's one of the things that I like about this game as well, is the mention or the references to the other indie games. Like, the hat I'm wearing right now is for the the 3D platformer direct thing by the Billy Bust Up team. And yeah, that's one of the things that I love about this game is you have a lot of different hats, and I think even the sequel has like the Demon Turf hats.
Yeah, I just think that that kind of collaboration is not only cool in the game itself, but it's also super nice to have as a developer. Like, it's a small reminder that we're all people. Like, we are not companies making games. We are guys and girls, and we are just making games.
Yeah.
And there is people behind those games.
Yeah, it's like a community.
So this is like a good opportunity to talk to each other, to acknowledge each other, to acknowledge that we are not in a bubble.
Yeah.
That is a community itself, and it comes in coalition with what I said before. Like, you have to make a game not only because wanting to play it, but because wanting to make it.
Yeah.
And it's because making a game is also a big experience. And I think it's important to take into account how development is going to be when you make a game.
Yeah.
Because even if the game is the end product, like the whole experience will be the development.
Yeah. And yeah, like like I mentioned, I love seeing that community, and it's always nice. Even in the other games, you can see references to different games. So I agree, and that's something that people often forget is that games are made by people, especially indie games. And that, just because something's frustrating or something's difficult or something's not exactly perfect doesn't mean that doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's the creation of someone. It's like someone's heart and soul, and it's fine to give criticism, obviously, just to do it like fairly and like, I guess, without being a jerk.
Yeah, that's important. Like, can you believe that over a game such as Frogun, which is a rather small game that is as non-threatening as possible, I got like at least a couple instances of people being violent or threatening violence to me?
Crazy.
It's stupid because I mean, if it was a super famous game, maybe I could understand that I reach a big audience and the weirdos are out there too. But how can you be mad at this? This is like getting mad at Muppets.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, you can just stop playing the game, I guess, or do they expect you to go, oh yeah, you're right, let me just fix everything you hate about the game? I don't understand that line of thinking, but that's how it is, releasing your art out into the world, like, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes it's like how to say it in English, like a hit of reality. Like, there's things we don't know because we haven't been there, and the moment you finish a game and you put it out there, you discover that there's a lot of people out there who are jerks, and there is also like a lot of competition, and it's harder than it looks.
Yeah.
And it can be very sad and very hurtful to pour out your soul on a project only for it to be ignored or even trashed.
Yeah.
But sadly, that's what happens statistically. So how development?
Sorry, interrupt you. I think there's a bit of a lag. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that sadly it's something that you have to take into account. The more games you develop, you kinda forge this emotional armor about expectations.
Yeah. So how did it feel to release this game, like, and have it? Because I know it was like successful. How did it feel like working on it for not as long as the previous game, but like working on for, let's say, a year and releasing it and seeing all the reception to it?
Well, the initial plan was to develop Frogun in just a year, but with all of the stretch goals, it became more like 2 years.
Yeah.
And it felt nice, mostly because I could see the beginning and the end of the project, which is the thing I wanted to since the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I came from developing the previous game that took me 3 years, but felt like much longer. And just seeing it through to the beginning to the end, I'm going like, yeah, it's actually done. It's not a never-ending
Yeah.
slide. It's a path that you traverse once.
Mm.
That was already nice, but also the amount of support I got from it was totally unexpected. It's fun because like nowadays talking about Twitter cloud is stupid because we all know that Twitter is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
But back in the day, I went from having under 2,000 followers to having like 8,000 in a matter of months.
Yeah.
And it felt as if something in the universe had clicked, as if somehow I had passed some sort of test,
Yeah.
and now I was like a worthwhile creator.
Mm.
That maybe I could just change how I work. Maybe I could spend more time working on games.
Yeah.
It felt validating, and it felt like advancing in my career. And definitely just the way the game worked out and how sales went only furthered that feeling.
Mm.
It was very validating in a personal and professional way.
Yeah.
But also, I should add that even at that point, Frogun's success is a moderate one. Like, it's easy to see it and go, oh my god, this one is a super famous indie dev.
Yeah, Molegato's a millionaire now.
I'm certainly not a millionaire.
Yeah, I know.
Not only that, but I'm also not secure a spot as famous indie dev. Like, Frogun Anchor's launch, for example, did much poorer than the original Frogans. So I didn't get famous to a point where only my name could make people care about my next game. I still have to make them pull their own weight.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give any aspiring game devs? And especially, like, I think you are an interesting story as well because you, if I'm not wrong, you're from Spain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how, and I don't know about the game dev scene in Spain, but I don't know too many game devs. How is it trying to be a game dev in a country where there is basically no game dev scene?
Well, actually, it's surprising, but there is a pretty strong indie scene here in Spain.
Really?
Yeah, like, it's just that there's this weird shame about being Spanish that some people have. Because the video game industry is very much in English.
Yeah, Western.
Yeah. And so talking in Spanish or acknowledging you are from Spanish feels like you're acknowledging you are from a small town.
Yeah.
So a lot of indies, while not exactly hiding that they are from Spain, they are not exactly promoting it. There is a few exceptions, of course, like Blasphemous, for example, real big indie game made in Spain. But it's not something that most Spanish devs wear on their sleeves.
Is that something you like follow in the steps of, or do you think like you think differently?
I don't really care about that because at the end of the day, the indie scene here in Spain is similar to any other place. Like, if you are really, really small, if you are just a person doing this on their spare time, on their bedroom, on their home computer, it doesn't matter if you are from Spain or you are from Italy or you are from America or you are from Japan. Like, you have the exact same resources and people are going to treat you mostly the same. Like, only thing that could matter perhaps is the language barrier or time zones. But with a little bit of elbow grease, that shouldn't be a problem either. And once you get a little bit bigger, if you want to go a little bit more corporate, have employees or something, like, as I said before, here in Spain there is a strong indie scene, there is bigger studios.
So, what advice would you give to any aspiring game devs, no matter where they're from?
Yeah, I will say that it's very easy to overthink everything and to become idle. and to not finish anything or just circling around. And that is the worst enemy of a small indie developer. Like the only one advantage indie devs have over big companies is that we can shed weight. We can just focus on the important, we can skip the meetings, we can skip the hires, we can skip the big corporate decisions. We can go straight to the meat and make something small and quick. And if we don't use that advantage, we really are not getting anything out of being indies.
Yeah, and I think that like that's the thing. It's both a good thing and a bad thing because it also means it completely depends on you. Like there's no meetings to give you a structure. You kind of have to figure out a way for it to work for you. I'm guessing that's one of the difficulties.
Exactly.
So how do you maintain? How did you stay motivated through all the previous games that you worked on?
Well, here's the thing. Like with the previous projects, it always was an on and off, or the project was short enough to have finished it in a spur of inspiration.
Yeah.
But with Frogun, it was mostly because the reception was so good, and I was getting such a constant loop of people reacting well to my work that I felt like, hey, I will just work on the next step and then show the next step.
Awesome.
And when people greet me for it and say nice things, I will work on the next step, so that happens again.
Yeah.
So I will say that actually providing that sort of moral support to indie devs online is important.
Definitely.
Because like it sounds a bit shieldish, like chasing for clout or whatever, but like we have to remember that devs are people.
Yeah.
People have an ego too, and people have feelings too.
And yeah, you need to feel like your art actually matters and the people actually are reacting to it in some way or another. So I understand that.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be like a big reaction from a lot of people. It can be just a few close friends or other devs that you look up to. But you know, just evading that feeling that you are shouting into the void and that maybe what you are making is inconsequential. That is what kills not only game developers but any kind of creator.
Yeah.
That is what kills creativity.
Yeah. Well, I am out of questions for Frogun 1, and I guess that leads us to Frogun 2. Let us get on to that, and I guess everyone watching, see you in part 2 of this video.